So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this second part of IPHE's conference, Hydrogen at a Global Scale. We are happy to go now to our second panel. It's the industry perspective and what you in industry expect from this upscale of hydrogen. And we are very, very pleased and honored to have the CEO of Cummins, one of the biggest power producers globally and especially in the US, with us. Tom Leineberger, we are looking forward to your perspective. We know that you have invested into hydrogenics quite recently, a very dear member of ours. And here in Europe, it's a Canadian company, but they are producing here in Europe, even here in Belgium, very close to us. Congratulations and welcome. You have the floor, Tom.
Hello, I'm Tom Leineberger, Cummins Chairman and CEO, and I'm really glad to be with you today. I'm sorry that we're not together in person, but I'm very honored to be on this panel, and it's my pleasure to speak with you. Let me start with just a little bit of background on myself. I've been with Cummins for 27 years now. I joined the company as a young engineer working in the manufacturing plant, but I didn't come because of the products. I love the products at Cummins, but that's not why I came. I came because I was so impressed with the company's values and leadership culture. It really felt like a place that I wanted to work. And 27 years later, I feel more strongly about that than ever. I'm only the 6th CEO at Cummins in 100 years, and I feel a great sense of duty to make sure the next 100 years is as good as the last, if not better. And I came from very humble beginnings, and I have to say how deeply honored I am to serve this great company, and I feel a great sense of obligation to all of our employees, shareholders, and stakeholders to create a bright future. And I want to talk a little bit more about how I want to do that with hydrogen. Our company's mission statement is making people's lives better by building a more prosperous world. As we think about what makes a prosperous world, we of course want to continue to provide products and services that help build wealth across the entire world, that serve customers all over the world with things that help them buy food, provide energy, build things, make new things. All these very simple duties that make life better are part of what Cummins provides through our products and services. But we have to be able to do that work consuming less resources and having less impact on the planet. Cummins, like many other companies, has pledged to be at net zero carbon emissions by 2050. Frankly speaking, we have no way to do that except to introduce very new technologies like fuel cells. That's why I'm excited about what hydrogen has to offer and why I'm a member of the Hydrogen Council. We offer a broad portfolio of power solutions, everything from diesel and natural gas to electrification and now hydrogen fuel cells and hydrogen from electrolyzers. But I'm very confident that hydrogen will be a bigger and bigger part of that portfolio over time, and at some point in the future, it will be the single largest part of what Cummins provides to customers. And I have to say that now has never been a better time for Cummins and for many of the other panelists here, as well as governments around the world, to invest in hydrogen infrastructure. As a result of the COVID pandemic, our economies are all significantly impacted, many damaged for years potentially. In order to restart these economies and build up again, we need to make investments. And why not make investments in those parts of the economy that will last us for the next 100 years, that'll build the foundations for how we want to provide energy and transportation in the future, not investing for yesterday, but investing for tomorrow. And I believe that by making investments in infrastructure for hydrogen, both as an energy storage, as well as an energy user for transportation and other important economic activities, we can do both. It allows us essentially to rewire our energy infrastructure at a time where we truly need investments. I also think we need to consider, as we make these investments, how we include more people around the world. We need to ensure that everyone is a beneficiary of economic growth and success, and that we think about including those who have been previously excluded. I look forward to serving on the Hydrogen Council further, and thank you again for inviting me to this panel.
Thanks very much, Tom. Thanks very much. We are happy to have you, and welcome in the hydrogen club, so to say. And I'm sure that this will be very, very good also for your business. Let's turn now to a company. We stay in North America, but it's a French company, and we welcome the CEO of Engie North America, Aziz. So Engie is a French company that engages in hydrogen for a long time now, and with a global scope. Gwenelle, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you very much. I'm also the representative of Engie at the Hydrogen Council, and we are very much focused on hydrogen, and especially on renewable hydrogen. Why is that? Because we truly think that the global warming is the key topic, the key areas for which there are two elements to work on. First, the development of renewable worldwide, and second, the development of what we call energy efficiency, meaning to reduce the consumption around energy. And renewable hydrogen has a key role to play. That's why when we discuss about recovery plan, there is a strong part on renewable hydrogen to stimulate the economy in a sustainable way, to stimulate new job creation, to stimulate new innovation. And this is the missing part of the energy transition, the renewable hydrogen. So that's why we are focused on accelerating this development. What it means? There are numbers of tech sectors. For example, the sectors like the chemical industry, the heavy industry, and also aviation, shipping, and all those kinds of industry. They are working hard on reducing their carbon footprint, on decarbonization. And the way to do it is really to produce, to consume green hydrogen for their own consumption. For example, the renewable hydrogen can be produced via water electrolysis and renewable power. And that's the key element that we are working with the industry to enable fossil fuel, to enable the transition from fossil fuels into a 100% carbon free. And this is not easy, but this is starting now. There is massification of renewable hydrogen installations that will pave the way for decarbonization of many other usages, mobility, injection in gas network, heating and cooling, and all those areas. So there is numbers of opportunities, but we need to act now. And that's why within Engie, we've been working on concrete projects. It's not just word, it's not a fantasy, it's not just a dream. This is concrete. And so that's why we're investing in decarbonization in the industrial usages. We've been working in Netherlands, for example, in partnership with Kadri and BioMCM, in Australia, in partnership with Yara, to decarbonize ammonia production for fertilizers. We are working in Chile in partnership with NIX to produce renewable ammonia for the mining industry. There are numbers of things happening across the world, And finally, for example, we are working in South Africa to address heavy mobility usages. So the message is that decarbonization of the industrial usages, decarbonization of the transport sector, it will happen. And renewable hydrogen is the key route, is the key journey to achieve that. Now the question on the table is competitiveness. Everybody is talking about cost. And this is the right discussion. We should talk about cost competitiveness solutions. And that's why we need to industrialize renewable. And this is the biggest focus area as of now. How to industrialize renewable hydrogen development so that it can be very competitive and very easy solution. And we believe that it could be achieved by 2030. But to do that, we need to invest large scale right now. And so that's the message. And I think that this will happen only if it's a collective effort at international, regional, national levels by all stakeholders, the industry, the politicians, the governmental affairs, and all the civil society. It will be a global effort.
Merci beaucoup, and many thanks, Gwenelle. That was passionate. I liked I like this very much, and it shows that your global angle is so interesting because you have projects all over the globe. It's very, very interesting. I think we will come back to it when we discuss in the end with especially with Pierre Etienne. You mentioned the Hydrogen Council about this global scale. Now, somebody has to do the electrolysis that you were talking about. Somebody has to build the electrolyzers, and this is among others Jon Løkke. Jon Løkke is the CEO of Nel. Whoever is interested in stock markets might have a look at the moment to Nel. It's one of the best performers. It's some people say he's one of the superstars in the electrolyzer business. And I would like to pass the floor to Jon, who has really something to say when it comes to electrolyzers. Jon.
Thank you very much, Jorgo. Thank you very much for that very kind introduction. I want to kind of share some industry perspectives here, and hopefully that will be valuable. I hope you can hear me well. Thank you also for allowing us to participate. We are very grateful to that, and thank you to the IPHE. I think you do a fantastic job, so please keep up all the good work. I'll go through this presentation very quickly because we only have a few minutes and I want to leave room to discuss. But just a quick reminder of who we are. Nel Hydrogen, we are the largest electrolyzer producer in the world. We have both PEM and alkaline, and we've installed more than 3,500 systems in 80 countries. So we have quite a long legacy history. We're also one of the leaders on fueling stations for cars, trucks, buses, etc. And we have raised a lot of capital, so we are basically ready to push forward and expand our facilities. This has been touched upon already. 25% of the CO2 emissions globally relates to mobility applications. We have already seen that the industry can address cars and buses and trucks. That needs to be scaled up, but hydrogen is also the best solution for many of the other applications that you see on this slide, including marine applications, fast ferries, etc., etc. Green renewable hydrogen in some sort of form should be implemented to cut CO2 emissions in those areas. And then we have the whole range of industrial applications, as we saw: CO2-free green ammonia, refineries, methanol, CO2-free cement or steel. We are involved in many of those projects also. Some of them are less mature than others, but we see really that things are moving. That's another 25% of CO2 emissions that hydrogen can address right there. In total, 4,000 gigawatts of electrolyzers needs to be installed over the coming years. And to put that into perspective, last year's market was 0.1 gigawatt. So clearly, it's easy to understand that we have a lot of homework to do together to be able to address this. We have also seen a lot of good initiatives and announcements lately, which is really great. The 2 times 40 gigawatt initiative from Hydrogen Europe. We see Portugal, we said Denmark, we've seen initiatives in Germany, and obviously very, very encouraging the news and the passion coming from Frans Timmermans with trying to make or pushing to make green hydrogen part of the Corona recovery plan. All of that is very motivating for us that is living this every day. And the good news for everyone is that we have done it before. It can be done again. We have done it before. This is the largest green ammonia plant in the world. 168 electrolyzers was installed and operated, where we did that as part of Norsk Hydro back in the day. So it can be done again. And I want to talk about scale up, because we really think that when it comes to electrolyzers, we already have the building block. It is not about doing more demonstrations. We now need to scale up. And that is why we've already taken the decision to expand our electrolyzer capacity by 10x. When this site is fully developed, it can deliver significantly more than 1 gigawatt of electrolyzers each year. And we can expand this very, very quickly as we have the capital and we have the building block. Now, Many people may be concerned around the world that a lot of the value creation will happen in Norway, and I can encourage you that is not the case. If you install and build an electrolyzer facility, whether it's in Australia or in South America or whatever, significantly more than 50% of the value creation, maybe up to 70%, will happen locally, even if the stacks are produced in Norway. And then obviously we can do copy paste. If there is a big market, we'll put a fully automated production line in the local market. So the key to reach fossil parity now is to reduce the equipment cost through the scale-up cost down. I've been 10 years in solar and seen this. I've seen the capability of the industry to reduce costs by doing that. We then are standardizing building blocks of electrolyzers, 20 megawatt, 100 megawatt, 250 megawatt. We're also standardizing the way that these projects are executed, including the EPC, with prefabricated balance of plant elements that are coming directly to the site. We also make the project bankable. And we can do that because we have an enormous amount of field history. We have data of our electrolyzers, which have been sitting in the field more than 20 years. And we can then offer 20-year performance guarantees on our equipment to ensure that the electrolyzers and the projects are bankable. So we think that this will happen. I've taken this slide from Bloomberg, and it shows that green hydrogen will outcompete gray and blue hydrogen. However, we do think that this will happen much sooner than many people think. We are actually already now signing contracts forward at prices which are below the target of IPHE targets for electrolyzers for 2030. We are already now booking contracts on those levels. So we think that this transition will happen sooner rather than later. And it's about execution, it's about scale up, it's not about demonstrations. I want to thank again the IPHE for the incredible work they've been doing. Please continue. We still need government support. We still need to continue R&D, especially on fuel cells and those related. But we need to make sure now that we stimulate end user demands, end user application, so that we can basically do the scale of cost down. And obviously, everyone needs to push standardization of codes and standards. That is extremely important. That's the same we've seen in other technology, and that also has to happen here in the hydrogen space. So with that, Jorgo, I pass the word back to you, and I look forward to contributing in the panel discussion. Thank you.
Tusen takk. Many thanks to Norway, and we take what you said literally, so copy paste as possible. So whoever wants now to produce and to manufacture in your country, Jon is ready to come. That's very, very important to know, because if we really scale up, I mean, we need exactly that flexibility. But we come back to that because we will have a discussion. And Jon, in your presentation, we saw already this nice, wonderful car, which is called Nexo. We will turn now to the next speaker, and I can ask already to put his video on, because it is a pre-recorded presentation. But before doing so, I have to say that Jon and myself, we share the same destiny. We are drivers of this Nexo car. And I can say to all of our participants, it's really fun.
Good morning. I'd like to extend my sincerest congratulations on the opening of the IPHE's Virtual Global Hydrogen Forum. It's a great honor and privilege to be among such an esteemed group of hydrogen leaders, although over a video message due to the pandemic and the time differences. It's been 1 year since the meeting of G20 Energy and Environment Minister in Karuizawa and the launch of the IEA report. Since then, we have seen governments around the world take meaningful steps toward the hydrogen future. Korea enacted the world's first hydrogen law in February and will soon establish a council dedicated to the promotion of hydrogen economy led by the Prime Minister. Earlier this month, the government committed nearly $1.2 billion toward the Green New Deal initiative to create a new growth engine in the post-COVID-19 era. It's clear that the pandemic has not slowed down the hydrogen momentum in Korea, with the government well on its way to meeting its target to supply 10,000 hydrogen-powered vehicles and 100 charging stations within the year. Industry players have also been actively accelerating the transition to hydrogen society. In line with the government's roadmap, Hyundai Motor Group remains firmly committed to our fuel cell vision and is on trajectory with our plans. We are expanding beyond passenger vehicles into the domains such as buses, trucks, vessels, and trains. We are also collaborating with companies from around the world to scale up infrastructure. Other Korean companies have announced major plans for liquid hydrogen, which will make Korea home to the single largest manufacturing facility of liquid hydrogen in the world. We are also seeing cross-industry collaborations take place between fuel cell and battery manufacturers to generate a synergy in energy storage. Korea's world-leading hydrogen technology and infrastructure were possible because of close public-private partnerships and active investments. Building on this positive momentum, our mission now is to make sure hydrogen plays a critical role in the global recovery from COVID-19. I'm confident that hydrogen will be a powerful enabler of industrial transformation, and it's time for governments to place hydrogen economy at the core of their New Deal initiatives and COVID-19 recovery plans. Just as the world came together to combat the ongoing pandemic, our path to hydrogen society requires collective action. So, let's continue to work together and lead the way toward a hydrogen-powered future. Thank you for your attention, and I hope you stay safe and healthy.
Many thanks. Many thanks to this presentation from Hyundai and the Vice Executive Chairman, Ayo Sun Chung. And let us come now to the guy that made me drive for the first time in my life a hydrogen car, which was, by the way, the predecessor of the Nexo. So it was the iX35, and it was a wonderful drive, a ride in Paris, very close to the Eiffel Tower, and we drove to a fueling station that was put right into the center of town by Ali Keed. And Ali Keed was at that time leading my association, Hydrogen Europe, and Pierre-Etienne then decided to build up something on a global scale, which is called the Hydrogen Council. It is a club of CEOs, so it's an industrial club, very efficient and very successful. And I owe Pierre-Etienne very much, because he was, so to say, the president who hired me here in Brussels for Hydrogen Europe. Pierre-Etienne, I'm looking forward to your contribution, and already I have to tell you huge respect for the job you're doing on a global scale. What's your take on it?
I was clever enough to not start any new job before I had hired you, because without the energy and drive that I guess you and the team and Nicolas and all the teams that have put forward Hydrogen Europe, I think we would not be in the situation that we are seeing today in Europe for the development of the support of the technology by the Commission. So indeed, it's a very critical moment, and I think for those of you that listened to the first part, you've seen that many countries are trying to look how to foster hydrogen use to help deliver the energy transition in hard-to-abate sectors, in heavy transportation. They also want, of course, to make it green and clean, and that's why we have a lot of technology ahead of us. And I think we are lucky because first, IPHE has been there for, I think, the last 15 years, waiting for that moment to come as an intergovernmental body fostering international cooperation. That's going to be fundamental in the next steps because we need to make sure regulation standards are harmonized and that there is a kind of agreement on the way we consider hydrogen, how it's traded, how it can circulate from one continent to another. So IPHE is fundamental. We also have very strong regional associations gathering the industry views. Hydrogen Europe, one of them, and probably one of the most prominent. Also some in the US, in Korea, in Japan, in China. And we have managed a couple of years ago to raise the visibility and I would say the alignment of the industry players by indeed trying to bring them together at the Hydrogen Council. It was co-chaired with Toyota and then by Hyundai, with Chairman Chung, who did a huge job over the last 2 years, jointly with our chairman as well. And the objective of that was to make sure that the topic is captured at the right level so that there is a joint ambition that we formulated in a study that I think everybody knows, Scaling Up, that showed that it could represent 18% of the energy transition and that it was needed now to move forward. We then did another study the last couple of months that we published a couple of months ago, which shows that if we want to succeed, we need, of course, to be clean, to keep being safe, and to be competitive. And that hydrogen has a place, but not everywhere. It has a place in a couple of selected applications, and we found around 18 of them. This mostly related to heavy, I would say, intense and heavy mobility on the one side. And that's why we see Cummins coming and many other players, and of course Hyundai, but also in heavy industries, which are a lot of heavy heating needs and need to decarbonize their processes or decarbonize their existing hydrogen streams. The beauty of it is that hydrogen is the grail of both the utilities, the oil and gas, and many technology companies, because it's a way to clean your fossil energy with carbon capture. It's also a way to bring value to your renewable electrons. And so it's the place that everyone wants to be to. But for it to work, we at the council level thought that it was necessary to basically grasp a couple of key messages. First, that everybody needs to remind that most of the industries that are speaking around the table suffer a lot from the current situation. And that the fact that you still have them at the table fighting for the cause of hydrogen shows that hydrogen is really a priority and is not going to be fade away because of the crisis. Second, that this is a systemic play. So any policy needs to look both upstream and downstream. We need global, consistent support for both the cleaning and greening of hydrogen, and second, the use of it in the sectors that need it. For that, we need also to look at all options to make green and clean hydrogen acceptable, because we will need all of them, and it's a way to embark all players in this journey, which is a big one. And for that, we need, of course, very specific schemes. You need both, I would say, type of contract for difference or pluriannual support schemes to help value the price of low carbon hydrogen, which is today by definition higher than what we call gray hydrogen. And so for that, you need the support so that the customers are capable to pay, or that the suppliers are capable to bring at a price which is acceptable and pays for the delta cost. We need also to make sure that the regulations progressively enable that all the supply chains that are going to be needed for hydrogen to move from one place to another are enabled, which means everywhere, gaseous, on-site, liquid needs to be available. We need many other coordination of many use of hydrogen in stations, in ports, in airports tomorrow. And if we manage to get that at the international level using coordinating group like IPHE, then I think we have a chance to really scale up properly. Last, we need to go scale. we cannot anymore go into demonstration. We need large projects. Everybody calls for it. We need large infrastructure deployment for transportation. We need large demonstrators for the use of hydrogen in the steel making, or in the Simmons, or in the refining or chemical industry. We need large electrolyzer schemes, hundreds of megawatt size, so that we get the benefits of scale. And we need, of course, also large carbon capture schemes as they are currently developed in Europe. If we manage to do all of that with the right cooperation and balance between the policymakers and industry, we think that hydrogen is the place to be for the decade to come. Thank you.
Many thanks, Pierre-Etienne. Merci beaucoup. Quite impressive what you just said, and I want to start a discussion with this panel with you guys, industrial guys, so to say, our colleagues here from the industrial side, and I would like to pick up something you just said, Pierre-Etienne, and combine it with the Australian comment that Alan made with regards to the colors. So he said in the end, blue, green, gray, brown is not the important thing. The important thing is, and he said, and would you please activate your videos and mics again? I'm just, as that's technical advice. Coming back to the colors, how important is that? Because what Alan just said was he would prefer, so to say, a token for every kilo, for every ton of hydrogen that tells you where the hydrogen comes from and what's the carbon content. Is that something, I mean, we call it in Europe carbon content as the new currency. Is that something that would be important for hydrogen to become a tradable commodity, a globally tradable commodity? I would maybe like to start. I know that Nell comes later because they have a fire drill, so she comes some minutes later. But I would like to start maybe with Jon to answer this, because this is also something that is discussed very much, the blue-green thing. I mean, you're an electrolyzer guy. You are probably interested only in green. Is carbon content something that could become the new currency?
Well, I'm encouraged to hear what we heard from Australia here related to this token, but I don't want to kind of overcomplicate things. We in Norway, I mean, I'm a Norwegian citizen, so I obviously would like Norway to be successful with turning the gray hydrogen into blue hydrogen and be able to utilize the assets which are at the bottom of the North Sea. However, the way that we see the cost of electrolyzers coming down, the way that we see cost of renewables is coming down. I mean, even this year, we are in the middle of a COVID-19 crisis. Even this year, we will see 150 gigawatt of solar being installed. Wind is being installed still at the record pace. Energy will become cheap, and with the equipment cost coming down much sooner than people realize, much faster, I am encouraged to see that the Norwegian government is actually thinking twice about how much money do we spend on this, because, you know, when we are ready with the carbon capture and all of that, you know, green hydrogen will already have outcompete the rest. So at least that's something to keep in mind. The other benefit with electrolyzers is that you can start with a slightly smaller scale. You don't have to build a 500-ton facility. You can start with a 10, 15, 20 ton facility, and you already are very, very far down the cost curve. So you know, and you can do it locally. You can do it next to the steel fab, next to the ammonia fab, and you can combine it with wind and solar to get large utilization. So I think that to really understand the cost, how far it goes down, and I keep saying this again and again, and we saw it in solar, we saw it in wind, cost of equipment is going to come down much faster than people expect, much faster than the analysts are able to understand. Every year the analysts were trying to guess the cost of solar, the cost of the capacity of solar, and they were always missing, they were always behind. The industry was running ahead. And that is what we also see here with electrolyzers. So that is at least something to be very cautious about when we have this discussion about where to put the money.
Happy to see Gwenelle back again after the fire drill, so to say. And I think I'll come to Tom. I'll come to the American perspective very, very soon. However, Gwenelle, what Jon just said with regards to renewably produced hydrogen outcompeting any other form of hydrogen, is that something that you as Engie can confirm? Because you are in Chile, you are in South Africa, you are around the globe at the hot spot of renewable hydrogen, renewable energy production, which will become soon hot spot of renewable hydrogen also. And I saw in the chat people from Uruguay said, hey, we are ready. So this is a Southern American perspective. What's your take on this? Is Jon right? Can you confirm what Jon just said? You need to unmute yourself, Gwenelle.
Hello. Yeah, you're absolutely right. The question of competitiveness is critical. Today, when it comes to production cost of renewable hydrogen, it's between 3.5 to 7 euros per kilogram, whereas the cost of grey hydrogen produced from fossil fuel stands at around 1.5 euros per kilogram. So there is a difference, and we know that. But we also know that there is two levers to improve this difference. The first one is renewable power side. You know that we've been through a tremendous decrease of production cost, and still the decrease is pursuing. And that's why when it comes to renewable hydrogen, we have to target those areas where renewable power is decreasing, is very cheap, is continuing to decrease. So this is the first element. And the second element is on the electrolysis cost. We expect the same trend. A decrease of 70 to 80% of the cost is announced over the next 10 years. It is already announced by electrolysis suppliers, so it will go the same way, similarly to what we've seen for renewables, and there will be efficiency gains and there will be scale effects. That's why for us, when it comes to the different colors of hydrogen, I would say there will be a position for different colors in the future. There will be a hydrogen economy that will take place with different colors. We are investing much more on renewable hydrogen, and that's why we are looking at different countries where we think that there is abundant renewable resources, and at the same time, there is still a capacity to decrease the cost of renewable power side. So at the end of the day, we have a product that is competitive.
Many thanks. You just confirmed basically what Jon said. However, you need investors. You need people who believe in that. And that brings me to Tom and to the American perspective, where we have a very interesting phenomenon. That's Nikola trucks. Jon is quite involved into that. And Nikola did exactly this idea. So locally produced renewable hydrogen as the basis of a transportation system, zero-emission transportation system. And what we see is that the market value of Nikola, although they did not produce a single truck so far, is higher than Ford and General Motors. So it's the Tesla phenomenon, maybe based on hydrogen, also a little bit of battery. And I wanted to ask you, Tom, what is your expectation? Because you invested also heavily now into electrolysis, and you told us the reasons why. But what's your expectations? Will the investors in the US also turn into this technologies? Because we see a clear difference between the geographies. I mean, we have heard from Jon about the EU, the European Commission being strong, like Franz Timmermans, the Executive Vice President of the European Commission, being very, very strong and paving the way for a clear investment, public investment network. So what's your take? In the US, you don't have that public point, but you have an investor's point. Please tell us your view on that. You need to unmute yourself, Tom. We have difficulties to hear you. Yeah. We cannot hear you. No. There's something. No. Say it again. No, we have difficulties. We cannot hear you. You don't know why. We don't know where the problem is. So you're unmuted. You are unmuted, but we cannot hear you. Let's try to. Can you press F5 button and maybe F5 button and maybe then it works. And now try again. I think I think you have to use the chat. I'm very sorry to tell you that, because yeah, we definitely cannot hear you. That's difficult. Okay, Tom should close the tab and open his live link again. Okay, so I turn to if you reconnect, that's right. So let me turn to Pierre-Etienne then, because he is running with the Hydrogen Council quite an interesting show around the globe. So he has organized investor shows in New York, and he's very active in that. Pierre-Etienne, how do you see that? What do investors expect from the hydrogen business on one hand, but also from the policymakers in order to get engaged massively?
Well, you see with the dynamic of the market, the financial market, with a couple of companies, including Nel, that the investors have already bought in that hydrogen will be part of the transition. So that's one thing. I think sorry to come back to the former discussion, but the notion of traceability of hydrogen as a tradable product is fundamental. On Alan, we had a lot of discussion with him. We need to find a threshold, and we need to find methodology for that. Together with Hydrogen Europe, showing that the carbon content of the technology based on what you use, biogas, carbon capture, electrolysis, with nuclear, with renewable, you have a carbon content which is different. But all solutions are needed because we need to go fast and we need to be cheap. The investors are interested to see investments, especially in those massive scale power to gas projects, where the offtake are in a way guaranteed. And that's why we need industry customers to have regulations pushing them to use low carbon hydrogen. We need power to gas blended in some networks to help inject it. And we need contract for difference scheme, PPPs type of solutions with public bodies, so that you can generate a foreseeable source of revenues. If we don't do that, we cannot pay and support the capex of those large projects. We need also to do that for the carbon capture, because everybody knows that even if the renewable is the end game, there will be a bridging time. And especially in Europe, we are lucky in Europe to have a lot of places where you can store carbon. And here again, you need the right regulations to enable players to store carbon. We have, as Air Liquide, if I may say one word, been pushing both technologies. We are, as you know, a partner with Simmons in the electrolysis and the fuel cell world with hydrogenics. We are developing today the largest PEM electrolyzer based on hydroelectricity, which is going to deliver a very aggressive cost of hydrogen. We have also been operating for 5 years a carbon capture unit in a classical gray hydrogen system, which is also delivering competitive hydrogen. So I think we need to push all solutions, but it works because you have customers in the end ready to pay, and policymakers or public regimes or public schemes which pays for the value of low carbon. And that's what needed to get investors even more attracted.
Many thanks. Now let's turn back to Tom, and hopefully we can hear you. Yeah, excellent. So what is triggering investment in the US? And you are an investor yourself.
Yes. Well, let me just say this. First of all, the public investment, I think, in the US is not good enough. And I don't think it will be as good as Europe. I don't think there's any question about that. But I do think the Department of Energy has done a lot of important work to promote hydrogen and is still working hard to create standards and codes and encourage and use the power of the government to try to get more investors in, which is important. It's always important to see some public support for whatever you're doing. So Of course, I would like to see larger public investments in the U.S. I think for infrastructure and other things is important. But nonetheless, I do think the federal government through the Department of Energy is playing an important role, as is the state of California. Second thing I'd say is that investor appetite is large. Every investor recognizes that public companies have made commitments to be zero net emissions in 2050. And if that's the case, there really isn't a transportation solution that will work, at least not for large-scale energy projects, trains, and things like it, other than hydrogen. The truth is, most people do not see batteries as the final solution for the large energy users. So increasingly, investors are understanding that hydrogen is really the best path forward. And so I think investors are ready to invest. But the challenge now is imagination of the public. And I think the Hydrogen Council is working on increasing the public's understanding of what hydrogen can do. Because my own children know a lot about batteries. They're very excited about Tesla. When I ask them about fuel cells, they don't even know what I'm talking about. And I need them to know. So not because they're the investors, but because this imagination increases people's public interest, increases government interest, increases investor interest. And Nicola, while none of us understand how the valuation can be that high without selling a truck, it's really good for the industry because it just increases awareness about the possibilities, which is what we need.
Many thanks, Tom. I would have a very provocative question to all of you. Also, maybe as a last round before we will have some closing remarks by Noé van Hulst. I will refer to him later on. My question is, Tom, the currency in which we denominate a barrel of oil today is definitely dollar. Once a global marketplace, a global market for hydrogen, whatever, clean hydrogen is developed, what do you think is the currency in which this hydrogen will be denominated? I'll ask all of you, and please tell me also why. Possibly it will be Norwegian krona, but I don't know. But please tell me your view on that. I will ask all of you.
Good. I will give you a very non-controversial answer, which is I don't care. My main thing is like the currency doesn't matter one bit. I think the most important thing is that we need to begin to build regional scale centers where we can begin to deploy these technologies in a serious way. Deploy them for storage, renewable storage, deploy them for transportation, and deploy them for industry. And I think like Southern California is a good example, but we need more of those places in more parts of the world. We don't want just spot solutions. We need regional areas where all the technologies are deployed. We can all come down to scale. Investors can make money, and then we can go to the next spot. And I think whoever does it, the next one will do it, and we'll all benefit. And if it's euros, that's terrific. If it's Norwegian currency, it's fine. I don't really mind.
Tom, it's really great to listen to you, although it's difficult to get you out of technical reasons. But I like your enthusiasm and your bit into hydrogen. Excellent. Gwenelle, what about you? What do you think? And don't tell me it doesn't matter, because I know that as a European, and you know prime ministers' offices very well, and I know that in France the thinking of currency as a strategic issue is important. So what's your idea on that? You're mute, Gwenelle.
So two elements. First element, I will look at circular economy, because for me, what matters at the end of the day is also positive externalities of renewable hydrogen. And for me, the question is about circular economy. And in terms of currency, we could talk about degrees. I mean, we have in mind the 2-degree scenario, the Paris Agreement target. And to achieve that, we will need green hydrogen to be deployed everywhere. So, I mean, it is an element to contribute to the 2 degrees target that we have all in mind.
Excellent. Okay. Now, I will give Pierre-Etienne the last word, because he has the global overview. So, Pierre-Etienne, it's Jon first to tell us whether he thinks that, well, why not Norway, which is very, very strong in CCS, Equinor, in electrolysis, Nel, and in many other fields, might be the country that uses the currency because you're not in the euro. What's your take?
Unmute.
Sorry, we do the same mistake again and again. It's a good question, but for me, this is maybe not the most important, whichever currency we end up with or whatever we call it. I mean, for us, we only do hydrogen technology. That's the only thing we do. So we live or die with this. So I have to make my equipment reliable and cheap and available at scale as quickly as absolutely possible. And that's why we've basically taken steps forward already before the market is coming to scale up so that we are ready. Now, what we need then is to not have a discussion about blue or gray or green or whatever, but we need now the industry to help the customers to scale quicker. So can we help someone to take not only the demo, do it at demo station, demo site, but help the big ammonia producers to go green in large scale. Help the steel producers to move faster. That would help. That will help all of us, and it will certainly contribute to not only having a big plant ready to produce, but actually having a big plant delivering equipment, day in and day out. If the market is there, we are ready to go 24/7, 365 shifts. And I can promise you it's going to be extremely cost effective, the equipment coming out of that facility.
Many thanks. Very good to hear. So for you, it doesn't matter, but you can scale up, and that's important. You can deliver 1 gigawatt per year, something like that. And that is very, very important. Pierre-Etienne, I promised you to have the last word, so to say, on this question. Go ahead.
In fact, your question, as usual, is very clever. Because if you don't have a single currency for hydrogen, it means its world tradability, the vision of hydrogen being the vector moving from one continent to the other, did not work. So yes, we will need in the end a one single currency. That being said, the regional plays will be significant. Now, which currency, honestly, might be the Australian dollar. It depends who starts. It could be the US, it could be the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. As a European, I would prefer the euro, but I think the most important indeed is that there is some single currency valuation of hydrogen in the future because it will set the benchmark and shows it is an international play.
So it's up to me as the representative of the European Association Hydrogen Europe to say it should be one currency. And of course, you would see in the hydrogen strategy of the European Union that will be, I repeat myself, presented 8th of July. It should be the euro. Because Europe has this ambition to be the hub, one of the central hubs of this new marketplace called hydrogen. And in order to underpin this, I have to say thank you to all of you. I have to say especially thank you to our hosts. Our host is the IPHE. And again, Sunita, who is the current president of the IPHE, has done a tremendous job the last 2 years as a chair. There's also somebody who is, for me, the eternal president of IPHE. That's Bernard Foy. He is also one of the very, very important personalities here. But to be honest, these 2 years in America will now turn back to Europe. And I would like to give the floor to a very influential guy who was very, very important to put hydrogen on the agenda of the IEA. We talked about the role of the IEA before, and it's the special envoy of the Dutch government of the Netherlands on hydrogen. So the Netherlands have a special envoy, have an ambassador who was an ambassador with the IEA. That's Noé van Hulst. And Noé is, I think, vice president of the IPHE, and possibly he will play a bigger role in the IPHE from in the next 2 years. So Noe, you have the floor. You represent a country that might be one of the central hubs, a technology driver in hydrogen technologies. It's the Netherlands. Noe, you have the floor for a final assessment.
Many thanks, Jorgo. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, great. So thank you very much for that very kind introduction. I will not speak really from a Dutch perspective, but I'm speaking here really in capacity as the vice chair of IPHE. So just a very few words about today. I mean, I think really for IPHE, this was extremely encouraging. These two panels, if you sort of add them up, I think there's an amazing alignment of vision from both government, and we heard a lot of important government ministers, representatives, as well as industry leaders. I think basically saying in different words similar things in terms of, this is the time we are going to scale up, we are going to ramp up demand, supply, we need to tackle the challenges of infrastructure, codes and standards, etc. But I mean, an amazing, I think, alignment of what is needed to make that happen, number one. And secondly, also that, so many initiatives to indeed make that happen, to scale up the hydrogen strategies, but also the industry that's moving with ramping up the investment despite the crisis, what we heard. So it seems like investment in hydrogen and fuel cells is relatively corona resistant, which is a very good thing to hear. And even more, number three, we heard about in many countries that investment in hydrogen could be a part of the recovery packages from COVID-19. EU, other countries, Germany, we heard. So that's, I think, extremely encouraging. So I think it puts a big responsibility on all of us. This is really a new era, the new era of starting of significant deployment of hydrogen for the first time, moving into that phase. So I think it's really very, very encouraging to hear and stimulating. So I'm very thrilled about all of that. But let me not be long and really say, I think as IPHE, we will do whatever we can to take that forward, that challenge, and do whatever is in our capabilities, working with industry, working with Hydrogen Council and others to really make it happen in the next couple of years. Finally, Jorgo, let me really not only thank all the speakers for their contributions, but really also you, on behalf of Sunita, on behalf of Bernard, on behalf of all the other vice chairs, as well as the whole steering committee, the members of IPHE, for a wonderful job. You make it seem very easy to moderate panels like this, but of course, anyone that ever has tried his hand on doing it knows that it's not easy at all. But that's the art of the trick of how to do it. But thank you so much for all the effort, your dynamic moderation, and I think we were all very pleased to be here and to be present. Thank you so much, and everybody stay safe and stay healthy. Thank you.
Thank you, and goodbye to all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.